If you've been finding yourself in a bullet journal calendar rut lately, I'm here to give you 4 fresh ideas for how to mix up your calendars and keep your bullet journal feeling fresh and exciting. Hi, my name's Erin and I'm your bullet journal friend on the internet. Just before we get into these 4 layouts and exactly how to set them up, it's important that you know how many spaces you have on a page in your bullet journal, so you'll want to count the spaces across and also the spaces top to bottom. My journal has 26 spaces across and 38 top to bottom. Yours might be different. Let's get into this first monthly. It's an unconventional one. Just so you know, I've already been through and sketched out my layouts in pencil first, and I really recommend you do that too. I'm going to be jumping straight in with my Sakura Pigma Micron, my very favorite fine liner. And we'll start by making a column in the very center of the page, so you'll need to find the middle and count out 1 space to each side from the center of your page. I'm making sure I leave a little bit of space at the top and bottom of the page for decoration, so I've actually started counting from the bottom of the page where I want this column to end. And I'm using April 2023 as my example month for all of these layouts, so I've counted up 30 spaces from the bottom of where my column will end, to make sure I can accommodate the 30 days of April. But if you're doing a different month, make sure that you leave enough space for the number of days that are in the month you're setting up for. I like putting things in boxes, so I'm doing a fine liner box here, but you could just do this in color if you prefer. And once your box is outlined, you can remove all of your pencil marks. I'm using the right side of this column for the number for each day of the month, so obviously 1 through 30. And on the left side of the column, I'll put the initial for each day of the week, so the M for Monday, T for Tuesday, and so on. If you'd prefer them the other way around, you can absolutely do that and put the numbers on the left and the initials on the right. April starts on a Saturday, so I'm going to start with Saturday with my initials down this left side. And yes, I am forever checking my Google Calendar to make sure I'm putting the right things on my calendars for my bullet journal too. I've chosen 2 washi tapes and this jewel-tipped brown marker for all of my decorations for this calendar page. This pen actually has a light tip at one end and a dark tip at the other, which is very cool, and there will be links to everything I'm using in this video in the description as always. I'm going to colour in just the weekend days with the darker brown and then use the lighter brown for the weekdays, just to help me keep an idea of where I'm at in the month. But if you'd rather keep the whole box a solid colour, that is totally okay too. I felt like my numbers were getting a little bit lost in the dark brown, so I'm just going back over them with a white paint marker as well, so they're a little bit easier to see. Next is decoration time. I'm just going to use that washi tape I showed you earlier. This one's from the Petals and Parchment set from the washi tape shop. I'm cutting it to the same width as the page, with the help of my visitor, my lovely cat Mitsu, come to interrupt like he loves to do. This is one of my go-to lazy hacks for very quickly and very effectively decorating any page in your bullet journal, is to just line the top and bottom or the left and right with some torn washi tape edges. Pick 2 washi tapes, tear them up and layer them, and you'll end up with a really cool effect. I did it a lot in my reading journal. It also means you can make a washi tape that's probably a little bit too wide for the space you're using work in any situation, because you just tear it in half or tear it in thirds as I am doing here. I won't be using the middle part, but making it small enough for those top and bottom spaces, and I'm just laying those right next to the boxes so that they'll kind of peek over just a little bit into the space where we'll be planning. And Mitsu says, no more planning, I'm going to sit on your wrist now. But we have calendars to set up, we can't have cat butt wrist to rest right now, so let's just carry on. This floral washi tape is a little bit thinner than the previous, so I'm only going to need to tear it in half, and I'm trying to make sure that I make the tear not too close to the center all the time. I want it to have sort of a wavy line as well as a soft torn edge, if that makes sense. And then I'll just lay that one down right on top of the previous washi tape that we placed, just a little bit staggered so that you can still see the one underneath, and then you have this really cool layered, much more difficult than it looks decoration technique, and it's so fast. I love it. But I never quite know when to stop, so I'm going to add a few little washi tape stickers over the top as well. These ones are some coffee ones. They're very cute and sweet, just to give a little bit of extra interest and detail to the page, just kind of in the corners. And then we can get back to the functional elements of this layout, which are arguably the more important part. I also wanted to put a header at the top of this page so it could almost double as a cover page if you'd like it to. So I'm using letter stamps and the dark end of that same brown brush pen from earlier to stamp out April on a separate piece of paper, and then I'm just going to tear around the edges of that just like we did with the washi tape so it has a nice soft edge, and use some glue tape to stick it to the center of the top decorative part of the page. And the center's really easy to find because of our calendar column in the middle there. The space to the left and right of that calendar column in the center there is where you write the events and tasks that you have for that day of the month. Just to make it a little bit easier to keep track of those, I'm using a very light gray brush pen just to mark every second row. It kind of serves a dual purpose as a little bit decorative, but also helping you follow the line across to the number so you can see what actually is falling on which day. And that's layout number 1 complete for the calendars. You could change the colors for this. You could not decorate the top and bottom if you wanted to. You could leave off the heading, anything at all that you want. It's just the function of this center column and the space on either side that is really the basis of this particular calendar. Now for the next one, we're going for a very different look. Still a single page calendar, but this one instead is a more traditional grid setup, with each box of the calendar being 3.5 spaces wide by 5 spaces tall, so they're tall and skinny. Remembering my journal has 26 spaces across the horizontal, if you divide that by 7, you get this not very nice round number, so I'm just going with 3.5 for the width of my boxes instead, and letting the outside edges kind of absorb that extra awkward space. So I'm coming in 1 box from the edge, counting across 3.5 from there, and I'm marking both of those points so I know where to draw the lines for this calendar. Marking your lines in the spaces rather than on the dots can feel a little bit weird the first few times that you do it, but if you keep practicing, you kind of get used to it and it gets easier. I have once again planned this out so there'll be a bit of space at the top and bottom of the page so I can add some decoration and theoretically tie it into an overall theme if I was doing that for the month in my journal. I'm also using a ruler for all of my lines, but you don't have to do that if you'd rather freehand your lines, that's totally okay too. At the top of the grid, I'm leaving just 1 space for the first row where we'll put the initial for each day of the week, and then each time there's another line below that, it is 5 spaces away from the one before. Now let's erase those pencil lines. I'm using 2 different sets of adorable cat washi tape stickers to decorate this one, but like always, the bones of the layout can stay the same and the way that you decorate it can make it look very different, so it's totally up to you how you decorate your own journal, or not decorate it. You can leave it completely unadorned if you prefer. I'm adding a little yellow circle in the top left corner of each box that will have a day in it, a few of them at the top there won't, and then adding the number for each day inside that little yellow box. Then just adding the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday across the top here. I like to do the first 3 letters of each day, but you could just do the first initial if you wanted to, or you could write the whole word. Totally up to you, as always. Having those first 5 calendar boxes empty was annoying me, so I'm using one of the washi tapes. This was a decorative one that still came with one of the cat sticker sets. Just using that to fill in that space so that it feels a little bit more intentional, and then I'm going to stick gorgeous kitties all around. This calendar was actually my go-to for most of 2020 and 2021. I used it a lot, and it looks really good with just a solid single washi tape at the top and bottom as well. You could add a heading like we did on the opposite page if you wanted to. Totally make it your own. That brings us to calendar number 3. This one is a double page spread, which means it uses both pages, and I'll be decorating it with this incredibly beautiful pastel PET tape with lovely girls and flowers and butterflies on. It's very cute. And it also happens to be a really good match for my brush pen set, so that's great. This layout has some extra spots at the bottom for planning for goals or notes. There's lots of space for decoration around the sides, and then in the center we have this wide gridded calendar similar to the previous page but wider this time. This is a good one for busy months when you have a lot going on. So I'm going to start from the center of the page and count out 5 spaces for the first one, and then 5.5 for the second column, and 5.5 for the one next to that as well. These columns on the right page are for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we're going to add the rest of the days on the other side. I'm only counting out 5 spaces for the columns that are closest to the gutter of the page, because the extra space between the last row of dots and the gutter will act as that extra half space anyway. So in the end, that will help the calendar to look a bit more balanced than it would have if you'd added the entire width of 5.5 there. I've left a gap of 2 spaces at the top this time for our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and the space vertically between each of these lines is 4 spaces. Then we add our vertical lines at each of those 5.5 space points. I'm not doing anything with the center gutter because it doesn't need a line because it already is one. And then we'll have our lovely enclosed calendar grid ready to go. I'm adding some blue to the top row of boxes here, the smaller ones that are for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just to make sure that they look very different to each day of the month. And there will be lots of blue in the stickers I'll be using soon, or the PET tape rather, that I will cut down into stickers to decorate the page, so it will go really nicely with that. And then I'm adding the number for each day, this time not adding it into a little colourful circle or anything, just the number on its own in the top right hand corner this time instead of the left of each box. Now, right below the calendar on the left side of the center of the page, I'm adding some lines, just ruling them exactly 1 box apart for each of these. This is to serve as a little note section for anything you need to remember for the month that doesn't have a specific day that it falls on. You can pop it down here in the notes. And then I'm doing a similar thing on the opposite side with my marker, just highlighting every second row, and that section is for goals for the month. So it's cool to have this little dashboard kind of style setup where you have multiple functions on the one page, and you still have plenty of room to decorate around them if you'd like to. If you didn't want to decorate around these and you wanted to keep it really simple and minimal, you could move everything up a few spaces so that the calendar starts a little higher on the page and then things would be a little bit more balanced than they are currently. I'm going to offset that balance a little bit and make it work with my stickers though, which is where these little cuties come in. The biggest space I have left over is on the right hand side of the page, so I'm going to make sure I use my biggest stickers over there. I'm actually layering some flowers behind this gorgeous blue haired girl because I just wanted her to be emerging in an explosion of florals. And I'll use some of the smaller ones around the rest of the spread. Since there's still a bit of room at the top here, I thought it would be fun to add a hand-lettered April header, and I want to incorporate as many colours here as I can, so I'm going to switch pens every couple of letters and make this kind of gradient style April header, which is so much fun. Now that all my pastel dreams are satisfied, let's move on to our very last calendar setup for this video. This one is another double page spread, so it goes across both sides of the page, but this time we have a very minimal, kind of small calendar in the middle with heaps of space for decoration around the sides, and I'm going to be using another PET tape, this one is a floral one, to decorate this setup as well. I've worked out where on the page I want my calendar to sit, and I'm starting from the center again and doing 3 columns on the left side and 4 on the right this time, instead of the other way around like we did on the previous. Each of these columns are 4 spaces wide. Then I'm leaving 1 space for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at the top, and then adding my next horizontal line 3 spaces down from the previous one for each of my weeklies. So it's quite a bit closer together than the previous. But something about this calendar layout is very elegant and sophisticated, and I also wanted to keep it looking very soft, so I'm using a grey marker this time to rule my lines instead of my black fine liner, and I'm not crossing the middle of the page gutter this time either. We're leaving a little gap on each side of that split in the center of the page this time instead of going all the way across. And I'm actually only going to be ruling horizontal lines this time. I'm not going to box this one up into a grid sort of calendar layout. I'm going to leave it open and let it breathe, and that's an option with any grid calendar layout. You can just not add the vertical lines if you'd like it to look a little bit more minimal. Or if you'd prefer those vertical lines, just add them on. You absolutely can. Now I'm just adding the numbers for each day of the week, and I've actually messed these ones up on the last row. I completely missed, I think it's the 29th, so I've somehow ended up with a 31st of April on this page. Forgive me. No, it was the 28th that I missed. Either way, mistakes happen, and were I going to actually use this spread in my journal, I would fix that, but I'm not going to, so for now let's just leave it as a sign of humanity. I've coloured in that top space with the same grey pen for my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm going to stamp those in black this time for a very bold, contrasty kind of, also still classic and classy look. Now look, she's stunning like this. You could leave it here, but I want to get in there with these flowers, and I'm going to, but I am still going to keep things very clean and minimal, so we're not going to go too overboard here. We're just going to add a few flowers around as a little accent. And when I do that, I like to keep them really close to the functional elements, even to the point where some of the leaves are hanging over onto that row that the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is stamped onto. I just like how that looks. And because I simply cannot leave well enough alone, and I liked how those stamps looked so much, I decided to stamp a little April header at the top too. So I've done the initial for each day of the week in lowercase. I thought I'd switch to uppercase for this just to give it a little bit of extra importance, if you will. And then I promise I'm going to stop messing with it because I love how it looks. And there she is, our fourth and final calendar layout for this video. I do also have an old version of this video in case you'd like some more inspiration. There's a link to that in the description. Here's a little reflection on all of the 4 calendars we've just set up. Let me know which is your favorite in the comments down below. I'll have another video for you next Friday, and I'm on Instagram too if you want to hang out there. Until next week, I hope you have a wonderful time. I'll see you again soon. Bye!